Welcome to Women Atheists Unload, the show by women for everyone. Today we have Shannon Q with us to discuss women and the struggle for peace.
I know you told your friend you're not okay, and tell me what's wrong and why you never said you felt that way. And guess you're trying to stay strong and fake a smile until I look away. But I've known you too long, it hurts to watch your blue eyes fade to gray.
So, hi Shannon, hi Cindy, what's up?
Hi.
I don't know if we say Happy Remembrance Day.
Yeah.
As the Great War is a painful memory that doesn't live in anyone, I don't think, at this point in their own minds. But it certainly lives in the memory of the world. We're watching in strange ways in the Middle East right now some of the consequences of that war's aftermath and the dissolution of the Ottoman Empire. And if you think about it, the German Empire, the Russian Empire, the Austro-Hungarian Empire, and the Ottoman Empire were casualties of that war, along with millions of people.
Yes, many a monarchy fell.
A number of those folks, a number of the victims of war, any war, are women and children. So I thought today we could talk about not just the struggle that women have engaged in for peace, but how women's struggles are key to building a better world where wars are less likely to occur. So,
just a little topic.
Just a small topic on Remembrance Day. So let's go around and throw out some thoughts and see where the discussion goes. I know you're not. I know we're working under time constraints, but so I'll try to keep my mouth shut and let you all do the talking.
Well, I'm happy to listen to what other people have to say. Also, I don't always have to take up all the air in the room. I know it seems like I do, but I don't always have to. I think it's fair to say that most of the destabilized regions in the world are regions where women don't have the same types of equality. I think that that's kind of a glaringly apparent thing. I think that the more educated women are and the more rights they have and the less patriarchal a society kind of tends to gravitate towards being a more peaceful society. I'm not a sociologist, so I don't know all of the in and outs of whys. But I have some ideas about why that might be. One of the things is that if women are better contributors to society and have more of a say in society, and the society itself is not geared towards having an aspect of wanting to keep women oppressed, then women aren't going to have to rise up and struggle, and that's not going to cause as much strife. What do you guys think? That's a jumping off point.
Well, I was thinking about the elections that took place in the US this week, where abortion rights were predominant, and we saw that people didn't like their rights to be taken away. And
imagine
what a surprise. And to come back to what Shannon was saying, in many societies in the world, women are I was going to say the minority, but we're not the minority. We are a category of people who happens to have the least rights. So every time we gain rights, then the entire population average rights is rising. And so when people have more rights, the need to fight for them lowers. And so the population gets happier and better and more productive, if that's what we want to achieve as well. But yeah, I think when the people who have the least rights gain rights, then everyone benefits from it, the entire country.
Yeah, I think education is such a key component too, because the more people, just in general, you have educated and becoming contributors to a society, like and decision makers in a society, and the more perspectives you have of people from different types of background, the more equitable the society is ultimately going to be overall, because there's people from all different perspectives coming together as equal contributors. If you have a society where there's a subclass of people, any kind of people, women, any kind of people that's perceived as a subclass that doesn't have the power within that society to be a contributor to things like lawmaking and legislation and how society's culture plays out on a day-to-day basis, you're going to create struggles and you're going to kind of dampen yourself, because you're cutting off your ability to get those contributions. You're like, those contributions never get to be made. And it's detrimental, I think, ultimately.
Yes, because on top
Yeah.
of legislators, you also have doctors and physicists and scientists and everything else.
Mhm.
So all those, it's funny because the new Speaker of the House that was elected recently,
Oh, yeah.
he said once that abortion should be prevented because it removes people from the society. It removes some people who could be used as pawns and manufacturers and all that. And you see that those kind of people, they just see us as just tools to help them go where they want. And that's the opposite of what we're talking about right now. It's people who want to be not just productive but part of the society, and we cannot do that if we don't have the same rights as everyone else.
Yeah, absolutely. 100%. Like, if you have a group of people whose potential can never be reached, I don't know why anybody with any sense would see that as a positive, right? But that's the way that women are perceived in large swaths of the world. Like I said earlier, like really destabilized parts of the world that see a lot of continuous strife are places where women are subjugated the most. Like I know that's just a correlation, but I think there's something to it. Obviously, the more women succeed, the more society succeeds. And you wouldn't have to say that if we weren't subjugated to begin with. It's not saying, women are special, and therefore, because women are special, if they succeed, a society succeeds. It's saying you're taking half of your society and relegating it to the margins, and then wondering why that's stifling success. And it seems like such a straightforward answer is like, stop stifling those people. I often wonder, like, why do they do it? Like, I struggle with it because I am a woman, so my perspective is different, I guess, than the people who are doing it, but it doesn't make any sense to me. Why? Like, why keep women subjugated? Why would you see that as a net positive? Why are so many societies bent towards controlling women and women's bodies and women's lives? What do you guys think?
Well, I tell you,
Well,
I want to feature one extraordinary woman, a young woman who became, in I think it was 2014, the youngest recipient of the Nobel Peace Prize.
Oh.
woman by the name of Malala. It
Oh,
ties in, Shannon, to what you were talking about education,
Mm.
etc. This is just in 2008. She writes, my father was a teacher and ran a girls' school in our village. I love school, but everything changed when the Taliban took control of our town in Swat Valley. The extremists banned many things, like owning a television and playing music, and enforced harsh punishments for those who defied their orders. And they said girls could no longer attend school, go to school. In January 2008, when I was 11 years old, I said goodbye to my classmates, not knowing when, if ever, I would see them again. And a few years later, speaking out publicly, 2012, in October 2012, on my way home from school, a masked gunman boarded my school bus and asked, "Who is Malala?" He shot me on the left side of my head. I woke up 10 days later in a hospital in Birmingham, England. So this is the kind of violence that women in nations with particularly oppressive regimes who enforce the patriarchy at gunpoint is like. For her activism, she was awarded the Nobel Prize in 2014. So there you go.
Yeah. To answer Shannon's question, I would say I think it's just a petty longing for control.
Hmm.
I think the explanation is that simple.
So if I'm ruminating on this, so I'm just thinking out loud right now. So if somebody wants to keep power, then it would benefit them to keep at least 50% of the population as kind of like a lower class. That lowers their threat level, right? Because if women are uneducated and feel trapped and don't have the autonomy to take control of their own lives, then they can't threaten you. They can't be a part of what might overthrow your grasp of that power.
I think there's part of that, but I think there's also we saw that in most of those countries, religion is part of the mechanism that keeps women as a lower class. And we see that religions use women's ability to reproduce as a way to control the population at large. So I think there's also a part of this.
Yeah, I was thinking before about how silly it seems to me, because in almost every society you can think of, because most are patriarchal, women are in charge for the most part, if not the entirety, of child rearing, right? Which means that they're helping to mold and frame the minds of another generation. And it's just, you seem like it seems to me to be like, to go without saying that if that's the case, if they have that much power and they have that important a role, because that's arguably a pretty important role within any society, is, perpetuating the cultural mores of that society. Wouldn't you want them to be more educated? But I guess not. Because you need them
Depending on
to
the goals,
skills.
depending on the goals of the society. I mean, if if women are brought up to be subservient, to be lesser than, to be the sub model, to fit only within the confines of the household, the child rearing thing, at the instruction of the man who does have access to the education. And if you don't educate the women, then she doesn't have the tools to challenge that.
Right.
So it's
there's
a
that
sort
lack
of
access.
self-perpetuating thing.
Yeah, it's tragic. Like it's really overtly obvious in other parts of the world where you can see that they're consistently at war and women are like fighting for their basic human rights. But I don't think that it's just that way in other parts of the world too, right? Like we feel the repercussions of that dynamic. Like, well, I can't speak for you two, so sorry if I'm speaking for you two, but I feel the repercussions of that dynamic. And I'm assuming you guys would too, like all of us would.
Oh, yeah.
Because people have such a differing perspective of women and also seem to want to hold the reins of what a woman is and should be. And the people that are attempting to hold the reins of what a woman is and should be and how they should, interact with and enact themselves in society, it almost always, so help me God, is a dude. Like every time I talk a lot about abortion, right? Like I debate abortion a lot on some other shows that I host. Like I'm not going to assume that you guys have seen those, but I do it quite frequently. And every time, so help me God, it's a dude. I've never had a woman call in and tell me why I shouldn't have my basic human rights. It's always some guy that's like, well, here's the thing. Like, let me
explain it to you. Yeah.
Right.
Let me just explain how this works.
Comes in on his stands at his pulpit and tells me, how to think about my own perspective on the world. So
this coming from the woman whose claim to fame is the phrase mental vagina.
Yeah. I mean, although to be fair, he brought me to that. I didn't come up with that out of the clear blue sky, but yeah. Yes, indeed. And another dude, right? Like another, like that guy's actually
and it's some piece of work. This one, I remember.
Yeah, he was. Yeah.
But yeah, it's extremely funny when you see that. As you say, it's always men trying to hold this position.
Not always, predominantly.
Well, yeah, almost always men. When at the same time they know nothing about this. They don't know what a pregnancy is. They don't know how it works. They don't know how it affects women. Mm-hmm. The number of videos you can see on mostly the U.S. government, but probably others in the world, where legislators are trying to impose a law on abortion and then ask questions, and they don't even understand what they're talking about. It's flabbergasting. It's and I say this because today I had an issue with someone who had the same problem but in a different setting. But when you have someone who doesn't understand what they're talking about and yet trying to explain to you what they're talking about because they believe you don't, that's just
like you hit on something super important there too, Cindy. Like today I read a lot of news on like the Canadian government and legislation stuff because I live in Canada, so it's relevant to me. And they're putting together a council of people in our parliament, which is like I guess you call it like the White House of Canada or whatever. It's like it's where the federal government is. So the parliament is putting together this council of people. And the specific goal of this council is to discuss and make legislation surrounding women's health. Now, could you guess the constitution of this? I think it's like 12-person panel. Could you guess?
10 men, 2 women?
2 is an overestimation. There's one woman, she's a person of color. There's one other person of color, and then it's just white dudes. Just straight across the board. So these are the people who are going to be in charge of making decisions about legislation surrounding women's health. And we have public health care here. So this is super important because you'll hear women talk about and struggle with like not being believed, right? Or not having their own autonomy, even in a medical setting. Many women will be like, you know what? I want to have a hysterectomy, for example, for a multitude of reasons. Doesn't matter what the fucking reason is. It's their uterus. If they want to get rid of it, that like, if they want to eat it, then that's their problem. That's what they want to do. They probably have the reasons. That's between them and a doctor. In most circumstances, in Canada and the US, a woman, if she doesn't already have children and there's not like a drastic medical reason, can't have a hysterectomy without having permission of a partner. And if she doesn't have a partner, they'll do everything they can to avoid it, even if it's at a detriment to her. Women come in frequently and report that they're having pain, and what a woman's scale of pain is, because they tend to deal with it for so long, because they'll usually ask you like on a scale of 1 to 10. A woman might say a 5, whereas if a guy came in like immediately, they might say a 9, right? It's so relative, right? So they're not believed until they get to the point that they're absolutely like screaming, dying, like it's a dire situation, because women have so many roles simultaneously as well. Women are in the workforce and rearing children now and carrying the brunt of the home load for when it comes to home economics. So women are filling all of these roles simultaneously, taking less care of themselves, not being believed when they go into the doctor's office. And now there's a group of men who are like, we'll figure this out for you. It made me want to flip a fucking table. Sorry, I don't know if we're allowed to swear here. I'm sorry, I won't do that.
Yeah,
here.
you are.
But made me want to.
I think it's okay.
It was justifiable in the circumstance, I think. But it made me want to flip a table. Like, you can't tell me that in Canada, you can't find at least 5 more legislators. At least 5 more legislators that aren't guys to sit on the panel. Could you imagine the uproar if there was a men's health legislative body being created and it was just women right across the board? They'd have some things to say about that. They'd be like, you don't really understand our perspective, but we're just supposed to go, oh, that's status quo. The men are the ones who make the decision. This is normal, and not say anything. Otherwise, we're some sort of radical feminist who's just too woke and doesn't understand the way of things. It's infuriating to me.
You know what would make them furious? The same group aiming at making military legislations with only women. That would be funny to see.
Oh, that just a panel of women making military legislation would be, yeah, absolutely. Just all of your, I don't know what they call them, like colonels. Is that like the most in the States?
Generals.
Yeah, colonels and generals. Like just start just filling those positions with women. Because the problem is like men see themselves as the default, and they see putting a woman or somebody that isn't like a cis dude in a position of power. They see that as like a diversity choice that they're doing, not necessarily based on skill, but because, they need to now, because they just seem to still not be able to recognize that we're just as capable, especially intellectually.
The interesting thing about that is, if you ask Ben, Dr. Ben, he's in the military. Yeah. Right? He will tell you. He will tell you that the most integrated place in American life is the military.
Oh, that's cool.
And while it may not hold across the board, they certainly are striving to make it work.
Good.
Even probably the most conservative branch of the military and the most Christian one, the U.S. Air Force, they have standards.
Mm-hmm.
And part of readiness is making sure all of the pieces fit, and that includes women.
Yeah.
So That's good. And a lot of people, a lot of conservative folks, a lot of religious folks think that's horrible, terrible. But if you look at the United States, it is the strongest military power in the world. There's a reason for that.
Yeah, they inject a boatload of money into it constantly.
Yeah, they pay a lot of money, but with the commitment to readiness that includes people of all stripes. That's great. I can't say it's for a good cause, because I think that military serves power and money, and that's probably in the grander scheme of things, it's probably not a pathway to a better future. Is fighting our way to it. Doesn't make sense.
Interesting though, is because they do serve power and money. Them holding on to the ideas of diversity. They also, when Roe got overturned, the military was actually one of the people who were like, we need to keep these abortion rights for our all of these medical rights to bodily autonomy that are service women, like they're keeping those. Like, we're fighting against this. And if they serve money and power and have been operating at a high efficiency level for an extended period of time, wouldn't that be a demonstration, if this is the tact that they're taking, that it's an effective one? Like, it's one that is beneficial to serving money and power.
Yeah, it is. Yeah, it is. But it's
conservatives we're talking about. When you see conservatives right now, their ideal army is the Russian army. They keep bragging about those guys in shirtless in the snow, pulling out trees and fighting bears and whatever, and they were mocking the Ukrainian army, and because the Ukrainian army is also very, very diverse, and now we see Russia is trying to do the same thing. They because they lost so many people, they are trying to scrap the bottom of the barrel, but they take people that they never wanted to take before, like gay people. They announced that they were trying to recruit some of them, and so this discontinuity between reality and what conservatives see and what they want, I don't think this disconnect is going to go away anytime soon.
No, I think that's because their view of the ideal world never actually existed, and it's some sort of weird reconstructed fantasy of the 50s and 60s with the wife waiting for you with your cocktail when you get home, with her makeup on and her hair done and dinner ready for you, and she's happy and the kids are happy and she doesn't have to work, so she's happy she doesn't have to work, and she's those, that society never existed. And in so much as it did exist, it existed on the backs of women who weren't happy. Like, if you read through the history, I'm sure that there was a few women that were like, this is the life, I'm really enjoying this, that whatever, that's fine. But none of them had a choice, right? Like, taking away people's choice for the trajectory of their life is a massive thing. Like, it's a massive dissatisfier. If you told me, and I'm somebody who enjoys work, I enjoy contributing, I do a lot of sports, I run local community events, and I run sports leagues, and I coach teams, and I do charity work, and I have a full-time job. I like to be busy and be constructive and contribute. I like to, make money and pay my own bills. I like to be completely autonomous and completely without a need for anybody to support me. That way, everybody who is in my life entirely by choice and not by necessity. And that's how I like to live my life. I don't like to require anybody to assist me in order to go through my life. I wouldn't be happy otherwise. I know that about myself. That's not rare, right? Like that's being able to have your own autonomy and feel self-sufficient is not a rare desire to have, nor is it a new desire to have, which means that there was the lion's share of people in that imaginary society that they had in their head were unhappy but couldn't outwardly express it because their freedom and their safety were in the balance. And that's what they want to recreate.
Well, yeah, they being a woman of a certain age, I remember the 50s. I remember how the training was to be nice, to be deferential, to be not looking at a career. The unusual women were the ones that pursued independent, either higher education, study, or looking for means to that independence. The independence was denigrated for women within the culture. People would joke that girls who went to college were there to get the MRS degree, right? You know, because they're going to
find themselves a husband,
find themselves the breadwinner, and that was the stuff. And this is what these people want to go back to.
You know, I keep saying that all discrimination is based on false information, and this specific discrimination that women cannot be the breadwinner, they cannot sustain a family, they cannot because they don't have what it takes. That's still very much ingrained in some people's mentality, and it's as with other lies at the heart of many discriminations. It's extremely hard to get rid of this bad information.
And what's even more insidious is like the brainwashing that you won't be happy. Like this is your aspirations.
Right.
We're setting your aspirations for you. And we're telling you that this is the ideal that will make you happy. And it's a lie. It's an absolute lie. Like when you get to if you achieve that aspiration, you are in a completely dependent state, which renders you powerless and really easy to manipulate and exploit. But you've been convinced that that's your goal, right? And that's not what's going to happen to you. What's going to happen to you is you're just going to be blissfully happy once you get to that stage. It's complete brainwashing. And it's the fact that it's happening again today and that people are allowing it to happen is like the backsliding that's taking place right now is unreal, which is why I think so many more people should just be like, the frig.
That too. Yeah.
The heck.
But, you know, part of this, you know, thinking in terms of peace, you know, it's like what are the conditions under which peace can prevail? It certainly can't be conditions of terrible inequalities, terrible oppression, terrible stuff. And who feels that almost universally throughout the world but women? This is why you get women like Jane Addams, who founded the first settlement house in Chicago, also a Nobel Peace Prize winner, who set up preschool in the 30s. You know, in before that, I mean, she I think Hull House was like 1890s. Started a settlement house. This is before government programs. This is before Head Start. This is before a whole bunch of stuff. And there's a slide. I think. Yeah, share this tab instead. There's a slide there as to some of her work, and that's the sort of working for social justice which leads to the conditions necessary for peace that I think women have been involved with, but not without struggle. I mean, it's not a peaceful action. It isn't nice to, block up the hallways and bang on doors and say, "Hey, you need to take care of kids. You need to educate women." It's not easy or peaceful, but it sets the conditions for peace to prevail.
Yeah. And no one's preached respectability politics when it comes to the rhetoric surrounding their own rights more than women and minorities. We're all supposed to we need to make sure that we're approaching the discussion about our rights in the correct way so that it can be received appropriately, because it's our job to educate everybody as to why we also deserve the rights that you take for granted. And that, like, man, that's exhausting. Holy poo, is that ever exhausting to have somebody, like, to consistently have somebody look you dead in your face and tell you why you should have the rights you already have even taken away from you. Yet alone, imagine being in a scenario where you don't even have them yet, right? Like where you're in a society that you've never had them to begin with, and you're fighting to get them to start with, and being constantly told that you need to do that in a different tone.
I mean,
Yeah, because otherwise you're
Jane Addams
hysterical.
couldn't vote.
Yeah. Right? Suffrage.
Yeah, women are so emotional. They're so hysterical, So that's because we are the ones who will shoot other people just because we didn't like what they said, or just because they were in our parking lot or something like that,
And we started every single war, so far as I can remember.
Yeah.
We were in power for all of them, right?
Oh yeah. Well.
So emotional. God knows.
Golda Meir.
Get our period and then it's Armageddon. Too much cortisol.
Yeah. That's Maggie Thatcher in the Falkland Islands War. There's that. I mean, I don't think that there's inherently a huge difference between the way a woman head of government, a female head of government, is going to behave as regard the national interest, right? If war's the thing,
corrupt women equally as it would men.
If war's the thing that you gotta do, you're gonna do, because like Thatcher, like Golda Meir, like it's like, well, here we are. I'm faced with this stuff, and that's actually one of the things that have kept women out of leadership positions in government, because they're too unstable, the hormones and all of this and all of that. But when you look at that, when you're on balance, look at the crazy men that are running this stuff because they're so pumped up on testosterone. What the hell?
And also, they don't have the same sort of system of checks and balances that I think that you would have in a more educated and more universally egalitarian society. If your society was kind of universally educated as a right, and universally and sort of like by default egalitarian, where everybody is presented with fundamentally the same opportunities to avail of, then you create a society where there are more checks and balances, where there's not a large swaths of people who are so busy fighting for their basic human rights that they're not paying attention to how corrupt the system is, because they're in a life or death situation where they're just trying to survive. So their focus is like a wedge issue. They just want their rights. So if you keep that group of people subjugated and you keep them fighting just for their rights, then you're free to just kind of operate really poorly and corruptly without the same system of checks and balances that you would have if the entirety of the population already had their rights straight across the board and was heavily educated. Then those people are all going to be keeping you in check because they're not concerned with just survival. But that seems like a motivation.
Yeah, true. And also on top of that, I think if we had this kind of society, we would still have people who would be trying to take away other people's rights. So the protections would be there by necessity.
Yeah, like if there's always going to be corrupt people, men and women. Like women aren't immune from being jerks. I'm trying not to swear. I swear so much. Women aren't immune from sucking. Like if you see that,
I just called Maggie Maggie asshole. Maggie Thatcher an asshole in the chat, so that's what.
Well, I mean, she was. So there's that. There's that. But yeah, like they're not immune from being assholes. But if society on measures more egalitarian, then I really do believe that there's something to the fact that there's so many people who are just like trying to like get their head back above water that they can't see the shore, right? They can't see what's going on the shore.
Seriously.
And if they could, there'd be more people with eyes on what's actually happening. And if you're a person who's in a position of power, that's not what you want. And you want people fighting each other and not looking at you.
Yeah. I don't know. I think because Hillary would have been a good president.
Well, better than the alternative for sure. For sure.
I mean, if you look at the woman's qualifications, I mean, aside from being first lady, I think throw that out the window. But Secretary of State, Senator, I mean, the only person in American history that came with a similar resume was John Quincy Adams. I mean, he was secretary of. He was who was.
But has she ever hosted a reality show? So.
Yeah.
That's hard.
Damn. You got to check that off, don't you?
Politics become an entertainment spectacle.
That's it. Yeah, that is it.
Yeah,
I think so much of our politics these days is focused on this performance and the building of an audience that we lose sight of the politics and the principles, like why we're doing this stuff in the first place.
Especially with the commodification of the news media. Like the news media is now exceptionally partisan because they're selling the news as a product. And once the news becomes a product, it stops being on bias and the delivery changes because you're selling to a demographic and not solely delivering information. And that changes the entire dynamic of an election system because that's how people get their information. And now the information that they're getting can't be trusted because it's bias.
And deliberately so.
And deliberately so, of course, because that's what late stage capitalism is doing to us right now.
Yeah,
everything's a commodity.
And it's curious. You see it in the newspaper of record. The New York Times does these both sides things, and like when one side is determinatively fascist and oppressive, it's really difficult to just, why are you trying to make it look normal? Because it's not normal.
Because if people knew what was really going on,
didn't used to be.
Yeah,
I've got like maybe 15 minutes left. Just FYI, I'm so sorry.
Yeah, okay.
You're mad at me.
No, not at all.
My life's
I'm just glad to have you here. That's for sure.
I was happy to be here. Thank you for asking me. Somebody put a kid in my house and he keeps saying he's mine, so I've got to go attend to him.
Yeah, you got to take care of that every single time.
Mom, I'm like, who? What?
So
I need to feed you.
In the realm of, again, peace, and another Nobel Peace Prize winner is Wangari. I think it's pronounced Mathai a Kenyan who spent her career. She passed away because of ovarian cancer in 2011, but she spent her career planting trees,
Oh, she's a beautiful smile.
trying to maintain the physical environment of her country. Focused on caring for the planet. I mean, that's peace.
Mm-hmm.
That's kind of what we should be all focusing on, rather than, who cares if the planet explodes or melts away because God's taking us all home soon.
Yeah.
So
I mean,
I was
yeah.
focusing on. We seem to value these people's contributions towards peace, but never listen to and follow through on a grander scale.
I think we're all placated to a certain degree too, because where we, especially in the West, because where we are, we're safe and don't feel any sort of immediate threat, right? Like, I don't feel any sort of immediate threat here, so that makes it easier for me to be complicit. Like, I can feel being honest. You can feel a certain kind of way about it. You can get emotionally attached to it, but the best I can do as a citizen is speak about it. Like, I really don't have a way to contribute aside from speaking about it in whatever public forums I have available to me, and doing the best in my local area to be a contributor and not a detractor. But it's talk is easy. I don't know. I don't know what to say. And it's so easy to say that, look at all the contributions that women are making towards peace, but it's not that simple either, because peace isn't just a gender issue, right? The gender issue exists because systems of power and money subjugate women and minorities specifically to keep themselves in power. And religion plays into that as well. Or it's at the very least used by the people who are at the head of the systems of money and power as a tool, as a manipulation tactic. And a lot of religions really right on the page that, about those whammons. Don't let them talk. Don't go letting them act up or backhand them, they belong to you guys. So it makes it easy to use those and then subjugate a class of people entirely. So it's not just gender equality in and of itself is a huge and massive step towards a more peaceful society, and along with education, because gender equality brings with it education. It's it's part and parcel to it, because it's a right that other people take for granted. But gender equality would be a huge step towards that peace, because then, like I said before, there's people that aren't just trying to keep their heads above water, that are contributing more broadly. It's not that, a woman is going to be better because women are, just more peaceful, and they would get, because that just plays into the societal roles that they're building for us. That's just saying, you should give us equal rights because we are passive and peaceful and nurturing. I don't think that's the case either. Not if you really believe in equality. I don't think that there's some sort of thing that was built into my DNA because when Jesus made me a woman or whatever or whatever that somehow just makes me more passive and more caring and more nurturing and more likely. I think
you have to, because you have to care about babies,
right? Of course, yes, evolution, right? Because men would just take them and whip them around and throw them off cliffs, right?
Of course.
If women weren't there caring for the babies,
well, that's their
we
nature,
wouldn't even exist,
say.
right? Because men would just be throwing them around like footballs, because they don't care about babies, right? That's just a woman thing that just women do.
Yeah.
It just, Anyway, whatever. Sorry, I talk too much. I don't know why anybody invites me anywhere. I never shut up. Sorry.
Yeah, I've been giving you a run for your money, but so maybe we should get Cindy in here. It's like, shut us
You
both
swear.
up.
I'm the worst. Yeah, I don't know.
So,
Power.
education opportunities. You said you were involved in sports, Shannon.
Yeah, I run a softball league and I run a soccer league and I play competitive softball, competitive soccer, volleyball, and coach my son's soccer team. Used to ref soccer, played hockey. What else did I play? That's enough for now, probably. Yes.
Yeah, I play soccer and I plan on coaching a soccer female team next year.
Nice. What position? What do you play,
I
Cindy?
play midfielder.
Oh, you got some stamina. Nice. I don't have the stamina for midfield at all. I usually play strike, and I kick outside foot, so I usually play left wing strike. And I also I netmind. I play keeper because I like to knock people over.
I played keeper today as well, but the reason the reason why I asked this is because my main motivation to coach a girls team is I want them to have the same opportunity as guys, because as a trans woman I played soccer on both sides, and I see the difference in opportunities and how this difference of opportunities shaped the view that women's soccer is less everything than men's soccer. And so I want to give young girls the opportunity to do this. And sports is one massive opportunity giver to people. You mentioned education, and all that is equally important too. But I think sports can be empowering as well. And
100%. Like, I mentioned education a lot because I feel like it's a basic human rights that's denied people. Like, if you're not going to educate women, you're certainly not going to probably create a soccer team for them, right? Like, that's like a baseline. But you're 100% correct. Like, sports is so empowering for women. Like, I am almost 42. I'll be 42 in like 3 weeks, and I have MS. And I will not, I will keep doing soccer until the wheels fall off. Like, you will have to drag me kicking and screaming off the field. Yeah. Because it was such an important aspect of my life. And I still love it so much. And I get so much from it, like the camaraderie, the teamwork, the community building, like just the exercise. Like, there's so many wonderful aspects to it. And we recently actually filled out, this plays right into it. They sent us out a poll about like women having opportunities in soccer. Soccer Nova Scotia sent out this poll, and like where we think there's some disparities. And I think one of the huge things is that the men's sports are just like completely touted, and all of the money is poured into them. And when we start the kids together. And we're at a stage now, my son is 12, and there's a girls team that's like going up alongside him. But there aren't as many of them, right? Because they get discouraged from playing. They're like, people want them to go be dancers and figure skaters and stuff like that. They get discouraged from doing a sport like soccer. And the ones that do stay into it, because there are so few of them, they're in like a framework from an age bracket perspective that's built around specifically the boys groups, which are have an overabundance. So we got into a situation, and it was so ironic. It was just after we filled out the Soccer Nova Scotia poll that we had four girls who were just slightly over the age bracket, and enough girls that were underneath that they could just barely form a team. So we wanted to combine them together into a team. We're like, well, if we need to put them up, we can. But like most of these girls haven't played before, and they're only months off. Like, can we put them down? And Soccer Nova Scotia said, nope. And those four girls just didn't get to play. Those four 13-year-old girls now just don't have a team. Right? So crap like that happens. Like, that literally just happened. One of them is my friend's daughter, and my other friend coaches that team.
Sorry.
We're infuriated, like, because we're soccer players. Like, I'm a soccer player.
Yeah.
But my son would have no problem. There's a million places for him to go. They're not making the spaces because the structure is built around having an abundance of boys that you can just differentiate them like in a multitude of different ways, because you have like this massive group of them. There's less and less girls, and you're not making accommodations to keep them in the sport. That's a perfect example, Cindy.
And in some places, in some age brackets, girls are not nearly enough to make one championship for them, so they have to play with boys, and that's just, that shouldn't happen.
Right. And like, why is a good question. Like, why?
Yeah,
Why?
indeed.
Yeah,
Why?
it's,
In my sport, I'm sorry. Go ahead.
Yeah, just 1 second. I'm French, and the French national team in soccer is pretty diverse. And
you just have a soccer team? I didn't know.
I'm talking about male soccer team. And every time they play, I see racist comments. How come there are so many black people in French team? And I have the exact same reaction that you just had. Why? Why is it the case? Why is it the case that on each position a black person is chosen instead of a white person? Well, maybe because it's the only way they have to succeed in life because of the systemic racism in the country. Maybe, just maybe. So it's the exact same thing here with women.
Wild. Yeah.
My sport took a good hard approach, probably starting 20 years ago. It's not naturally separated by gender, because it's the physical requirements are mostly because it's an equipment dependent sport. If you can sail a laser, if you have a certain weight, height, etc., you can sail a laser, whether you're a boy or girl, man or woman. If you're too light, the boat will break you. So it's an equipment dependent sport. But the sport culturally was traditionally male. And we really wanted to get a little bit more diverse in that regard. And it's worked.
Oh, good.
This year, the Stanford team won the collegiate nationals. On the team, there were 12 people. 9 of them women, and the championship team that was fielded at the championships were all women.
It's better than our legislative women's health committee.
Absolutely fantastic.
5 miles.
Absolutely fantastic. So there are good stories.
That's great
out there.
I do have to go. I'm so sorry. That's a good stopping point. I love sports.
Yeah, well, we got to fit that, and thank you so much for making the time today. I know you're busy because sports and and so
Dan.
Very much appreciate your joining us today, Shannon.
Yeah,
so
thank you.
Absolutely a pleasure, Cindy. It was really nice to meet you. Stephanie, I guess it was fine. Mwah. Have a good night, guys. See you later. Bye.
Bye. All right.
Always right.
Yeah, that was fun.
Yeah.
So let's see, where do we go from here? Do you have any other thoughts? Any direction you want to steer at this point, Cindy?
I guess when we're talking about peace, because that's the topic of the day, it's I mean, it's hard to see peace happening in our lifetimes because not only because of the state of the world, but with what's coming. And we see that a lot of women are fighting, even most young girls like Greta Thunberg. When she started, she was what, 16, 17?
Mhm.
I like to see these women fight for eventual peace, but I'm not very optimistic on our chances. The question is, what could we do better? What could we do more to help raise those chances? And it's a question to you and to the audience. What does everyone think about this? What better can we do? What more can we do than what we are currently doing right now?
Oh boy, that is a tough one.
Maybe it's just a good way to end the show and leave people at that and think about it.
Maybe, but I want to say there are things that you can do. You can really quiz the people you intend to grant access to the levers of war-making capacity as to what are the circumstances under which they exercise that. I mean, I'm an old hippie, right? I spent time marching in DC when I was in my teens against the Vietnam War, which at the time had 500,000 American troops in South Vietnam. I mean, I think we all need to be very careful about who we give those levers of power to. And for the United States, I think that's going to be a thing of critical importance a year from now.
Yeah, I totally agree. I'm terrified at what would happen to the world if the US were to become a Christo-fascist country in terms of peace, as it's the topic today. So, yeah, I totally agree.
Yeah. So, perhaps we could leave everyone with thoughts and prayers for peace, act for peace. Let me just say thank you to our patrons, and they're scrolling past too quickly for me to read off, but they are down there on the bottom. Cindy Plaza's there, Michelle, Aaron Coalson, Phil Calderone, Amanda McLeod. You're all there. Thanks everyone for coming. Thank you, Cindy. And don't forget to check out our other shows on Skeptic Haven. Secular Soapbox Wednesdays, Thursdays, Sunny Spot, Saturday, The Global Atheists. That was earlier. And Women Atheists Unload, this show. And Sunday, Let's Talk. And thanks, everybody.
I know And tell me what's wrong and why you never said you felt that way. And guess you're trying to stay strong and fake a smile until I look away. But I've known you too long, it hurts to watch your blue eyes fade to gray as you fade away, as you fade away.
Yeah, I'm about to fade away, 'cause every time I wake up I feel like it's Monday. Something's going wrong with all the chemicals.